Good afternoon, Tiger Bay. I'm going to ask everyone to please take their seat, and we're going to get started with our program. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Misty Servia. I am your substitute today for Matt White, who is on vacation, summer vacation with his family. We are going to start this meeting, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you will rise and please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So thank you again, all of you, for being here. I'll ask you to please silence your cell phones if you have not done that. Just a couple of announcements as we get started. There is information on the table as you walked in today for registration for our memberships. Our membership, we are in a membership drive right now, and membership fees for individuals are $100. For nonprofit organizations, they are $200, and corporate memberships are $300. You do get a discounted lunch when you're a member, and you also get to ask questions at these programs. So that is the big benefit. We hope that if you're not a member, that you will join us today. And you can see Elaine at the check-in table, and she will help you to sign up, or you can go to our website. If you know any Manatee young professionals or young thought leaders, we will waive their membership fees because we are trying to encourage them to join. So please pass that on. And also, I would like to start by thanking our committee, our program committee. If you guys could please stand and just show us who you are. It takes a group of people to get these programs together, and Ben is on the program committee, but he is busy right now. But anyway, we appreciate all of you and the work that you do. And thanks to METV for always being here and recording. And if you happen to miss one of our luncheons, you can always go to their YouTube channel or metv.com and be directed to see the latest at Tiger Bay. So we're going to start our program, which is Water, Water Everywhere, but will we have enough to drink? The future of Manatee County's natural resources. I'm going to introduce the speakers. We have 4 of them here today. I will tell you that, unfortunately, John Osborne from Manatee County could not make it today, but in his place, we are very happy to have Mark Simpson. He will be our last speaker as we go alphabetically, as we always do. So we're going to get started with Mr. Buck Martinez, and let me tell you just a little bit about him. He is the president of 27 Consulting and president and founder of Student ACES. J.L. Buck Martinez specializes in energy issues such as renewable energy generation, development of generation projects, and labor management. He is president and founder of Student ACES, a nonprofit organization working with student athletes on leadership and values. Buck retired from FPL, where he worked for 35 years, and was responsible for identifying and originating clean energy opportunities in the state to promote visibility. Commitment, economic development. He led in the development of 3 large solar projects and 3 large combined cycle natural gas facilities. Buck holds a Bachelor's of Arts degree from St. Thomas University and a Master of Business Administration degree from Nova Southeast. Buck is past chairman of the Florida Solar Energy Center and serves on several advisory boards. He has worked in the Department of Energy on renewable energy initiatives and is actively in speaking engagements throughout our country. Buck has authored 2 books, The Building Blocks of Leadership for Young Adults and Captain's Leadership Playbook, and recently, Straight Talk, A Guide to Success for Young Adults. Buck is a frequent speaker at conferences, schools, and leadership forums. Buck, thank you very much for being here.
If I stayed at the table, they put all these cookies in front of me, so that would be a little distracting. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I came across from Palm Beach Gardens today, and I have to say I'm jealous. Looking out this window, I might not be going back for a while. As a matter of fact, Ray, if you have anything else for me to do this week, I'd take you up on it. But after 35 years with FPL, which I had incredible opportunity to work on many exciting initiatives. The last few years of my career, I got to work on a lot of solar projects. I worked with the Department of Energy quite a bit. and also natural gas. So I've had a chance to work with all these different technologies. So even though I don't fit the mold of water, what is it, water everywhere? I want to talk a little bit about generation, because generation really does have an effect on water. So what will the future look like? We've really seen a lot of changes, especially in the generation sector. I think if you look at energy as a whole, it's a fascinating subject, and people talk about energy. And I remember 20 years ago, if you worked in a utility, you were considered a very boring kind of individual. And today, I would say energy and healthcare are probably two of the most fundamentally fascinating subjects, right? So we've seen a precipitous decline in pricing on solar over the last few years, and we're beginning to see some changes in the batteries. So what's the future? And I think we're really on the cusp of a number of breakthroughs. Even though we've seen breakthroughs in pricing, we really haven't seen breakthroughs in technology, the way I really expect technology will shift. So what are some of these advantages of solar? Everybody talks about solar, and solar is the answer to everything. Well, you got to be intellectually honest. Solar has a tremendous advantage. The fact that the fuel is free, right? The days where the sun is shining, the fuel is free. Unfortunately, the sun doesn't shine all the time, especially at night. And then, as we've seen in the last few weeks, it's been very rainy and cloudy. So we need to have some balance. So at FPL, they were very focused on diversity, just like you would have a financial portfolio, diversity of generation. And we've been building natural gas projects, which are incredibly cheap, incredibly reliable, incredibly clean. But now we're also building a tremendous amount of solar. So let's put it in perspective. If you look at what's happening in the industry, there's a lot of intellectual dishonesty in when they try to compare the rationale for renewable energy. What they'll say is the United States only has like less than 1% of renewable energy. Well, that's probably true, but you have hundreds of years of that you've been up against statistics. If you take a look at what's happening on an incremental basis, right, which is really the way to look at things, in the last 2 or 3 years, over 50% of all the generation built in the United States is renewable energy. That's the way to really assess what's going on. So for the last 2 years at FPL, all the generation built was solar. That's phenomenal. I mean, actually, it's hard for us to think of what that means, but if you look at like wireless technology and look at what's happened with telecommunications, I think the generation sector will eventually have those kind of breakthroughs. So that's something that's really cool. In the short term, what's going to happen? I mean, I think Manatee County, as Florida, you're going to continue to see advances in solar. You're going to continue to see a lot of implementation of solar, but you also have to maintain the reliability of the grid. And that's where you have nuclear and you have natural gas. So we're continuing to build natural gas. That's allowing us to keep the pricing low. Today's pricing, and people don't believe this when I tell them, but the FPL price today is less than it was 10 years ago. So take a look at anything else, healthcare, education, food, and see if you can make those kind of comparisons. You're paying less today on a per kilowatt basis than you were 10 years ago. The emission profile of FPL is 30% better than the national average, and that's amazing. In 2001, FPL imported 40 million barrels of oil. Today, they don't import any oil. The system is a very clean system. And on a reliability basis, it was voted the most reliable energy company in the whole country. So you've got a total focus on affordable, reliable, and clean, and that's a pretty good thing for Manatee County. Now, 20 years from now, who knows? But I'll tell you this. I mean, a lot of people want the answer, and I think the answer is somewhere in somebody's garage. But, we've been looking at ocean energy for quite some time. And 10 years ago, they would tell you that ocean energy would be built 10 years from that time. Today, they tell you 10 years from today. So just like batteries that have had challenges, I think ocean energy has both environmental challenges as well as technical challenges. Unfortunately, on the west coast of Florida, you don't really have, it's not conducive to wave energy, and it's not conducive to the currents. The currents are really on the east coast of Florida, and the wave technology is really more conducive to the west coast of the United States, especially the northwest. So I think on the short term, you're going to continue to see a lot of build out of solar. Unfortunately, wind is not conducive to this area. It's very low wind. So you're going to see a lot more wind. And then the exciting thing for, I think the exciting thing for the energy industry is going to be battery technology. So batteries have always been viewed as the holy grail of energy, so that you can basically match intermittent power, which is solar and wind and those things, with firm, reliable power coming from batteries. We have already deployed a number of battery systems in the south end of Florida. We are actually building today 50 megawatts of battery capability in the state of Florida. That's really neat. And if batteries have the same effect that solar had, meaning a precipitous decline, as well as improvement in efficiency, you're going to see a radical change in this whole energy industry. And it's really right around the corner. So I think for us in the room that are a little bit older, we might not be able to see a lot of these technology advantages, but all those new individuals that you're recruiting, I think will be able to see a tremendous amount of impact. So the future is bright, no pun intended. I think you're going to see a tremendous amount of solar. As we speak, we're building FPL is building 8 huge 75 megawatt projects, and they have already committed between the years 2019 and 2023. They're going to be building 1,500 megawatts of solar. So that's going to be phenomenal. So stay tuned. It's an exciting time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Buck. And next up, we have Kevin Morris. Kevin has worked for the Peace River, Minnesota Regional Water Supply Authority for 18 years, where he is currently the Science and Technology Officer. He has a BS and an MS degrees in environmental engineering from the University of Central Florida, is a licensed professional engineer, and is also board certified as an environmental engineer. Kevin has an MBA from Florida State University, all right, I like him already, and certifications as a systems engineering professional, public procurement officer, and government finance manager. He also has credentials in the LEED, Envision, and Six Sigma programs. He has been involved with over $300 million in public wastewater supply infrastructure projects within this region. Kevin and his family have lived in Parrish since 1999, and he is an active high school mentor. Please welcome Kevin.
Thank you, Misty. It's an honor to be here today and serve as a part of this panel where I have some colleagues that I've known for almost 20 years and have met some new friends today. Let me start by recognizing 2 giants in the field of water supply for Manatee County, and they don't need any invitation here at Tiger Bay. And I'm talking about the former county commissioner, Pat Glass, and the late Ed Chance, also a county commissioner. These 2 individuals served a combined total of 24 years on my organization's board of directors. And they not only were visionary leaders that understood the importance of water supply in creating a vibrant economy here in Manatee County, but they also understood the importance of regionalism and involving yourself in activities that are going on outside of the county. And so they helped to foster the growth and development of my organization, the Peace River, Minnesota Regional Water Supply Authority. Now, last year, Manatee County celebrated the 50th anniversary of the dam across the Manatee River. And I'd be remiss in not recognizing those leaders also 50 years ago that had the vision to create a water supply that sustains the county even today. This dam created a 5-mile-long lake that is a mile wide and 30 feet deep in some places. It holds 6 billion gallons of water supply, and for the last 50 years, it has sustained Manatee County, it's sustained Sarasota County, Palmetto, Ellington Parish, the island communities, and serves as a vital backup to the city of Bradenton. So how much water does the county use on an average day? The county uses about 33 million gallons a day of water. And to put that into perspective, that would be the equivalent of 55 Olympic-sized swimming pools. Or if you took McKechnie Park and you filled it 4 stories high, that would be the amount of water that's used every single day by Manatee County. So do we have enough water for the future? Our population could expand by up to 250,000 people just in this county over the next 30 years. The Lake Manatee water treatment plant can produce 52 million gallons a day of water. It's more than enough to get us through the 20-year time frame. Beyond that time frame, the county is considering a number of individual water supply projects for itself, and also as a member of my organization, the Peace River Minnesota Regional Water Supply Authority, they also have the option of participating in projects that we are considering for Manatee County, but also for the other 3 counties of the authority, DeSoto County, Sarasota County, and Charlotte County. And those projects include additional surface water projects, brackish groundwater reverse osmosis, as well as projects including seawater desalination. I want to talk briefly about the cost of water. The average household of 4 in Manatee County uses about 5,000 gallons of water a month. The cost of that water to that family is only $11. That's very low cost, and I want to put it in perspective using a prop. One penny, just 1 penny, buys 5 gallons of water from the county. Now that's delivered to your home. That's delivered at pressure any time of the day or the night, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Okay, that's 1 penny buys you this much water. Okay? When you put it in that perspective, it certainly seems like a good value. Now, by contrast, when you visit a convenience store and you pay $1.50 for a bottle of water this size, okay, that $1.50 could have bought 750 gallons of county water. In other words, you could have bought over 300 cases of that bottled water. You could have filled over 300 cases of that bottled water, 3.5 pallets of that bottled water. So that gives you a sense for just what a great value the county water supply is. Now, transitioning to talk about cost factors. There are many factors that help utilities keep their costs low, and I want to focus on regionalism and economies of scale. Rather than counties fighting one another and waging water wars, as we've seen in other parts of the state and the country, the Peace River Minnesota Regional Water Supply Authority was formed so that 4 neighboring counties could work collaboratively together on water supply rather than fighting each other. And pooling our collective needs also allows us to build large, efficient facilities and pipelines, which allows us to take advantage of vast economies of scale. This regional approach also allows us to benefit from the reallocation of tax collections. The Southwest Florida Water Management District collects about $100 million a year in ad valorem taxes from the 16 counties that it oversees. One of the ways it returns these funds to the public is through incentivizing behavior that is consistent with policy. So in this part of Florida, fresh groundwater pumping has been overpumped and overstressed for about the last 6 to 7 decades. So to discourage municipalities from pumping additional fresh water, the Water Management District offers cooperative funding. They help to pay the costs for utilities that are willing to develop alternative water supply projects that do not use additional fresh groundwater. In the 20 years that I've been with the Water Supply Authority, we've constructed, as Misty said, over $300 million in capital improvement projects, and almost half of that has been offset through grants. Now, the list of things that keep water managers up at night is far too long to go into here in the short amount of time I have available today. But regionalism also promotes resiliency. As water managers, we owe a duty to the public to ensure the regional water supply system is resilient and sustainable. And one of my agency's missions is promoting system interconnection. And this can also promote the wheeling of water through systems in emergencies, and also it helps you to optimize source utilization. All right, and I apologize for this next topic since you're eating, but sometimes we're asked about direct potable reuse, okay? Unimaginably, this has been called toilet to tap. I'm sorry for that. I didn't coin that phrase. In arid places like Texas, this is already a reality. There are already communities in Texas, since the horrible droughts they've had over the last decade, that are using direct potable reuse. And direct potable reuse is feasible. It can be done, but there is a significant public perception barrier to overcome with that. It probably would be no more costly than seawater desalination. But in our region, we have, and I have to say I'm somewhat relieved by this, we have viable options, alternatives to direct potable reuse that will not compel us to go into that direction just yet. In our region, reuse is still very important. Reuse offsets agricultural, golf course, and municipal irrigation needs, and every drop of water that we use of reuse water offsets a drop of water of potable water that might otherwise have been used. So it's very important for us. Now, the Tampa Bay region has far more urgent water supply concerns than we do down here. And as part of their master plan update, they are considering direct and indirect potable reuse. And so we will be watching what goes on up there with a great deal of interest over the next few years. As I wrap up, let me share some thoughts about energy and water treatment. At our facility on the Peace River, we budget about $2 million a year for energy costs. And that comprises about 1/8 of our total O&M, operation and maintenance budget. But energy costs vary significantly by the type of design of plant you have. Seawater desalination plants, for example, have to achieve membrane pressures of up to 1,200 pounds per square inch. That's essentially pumping water up a mountain a half a mile in the air. It's incredibly energy intensive. And so for a seawater desal plant, you're looking at O&M costs that are about 4.5 times what ours are. So the cost of water is fairly low, but don't take the mistaken assumption that we're not on our game. We are constantly, as water managers, looking for ways to conserve, ways to be more efficient, looking for savings opportunities. We're really excited to see and hear about the solar energy improvements and the battery improvements that Buck talked about. As a matter of fact, we're taking a tour of some of those Florida Power and Light facilities here in a few short weeks. So the bottom line to this audience is, for my presentation, is that water supply is not currently a drag on economic growth in Manatee County, and it should not be into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. That was excellent. Next up, we have Chris Sherrick. Chris is a proud native Floridian. He grew up on the Space Coast and completed his BS and his MS in engineering at UCF in Orlando. Chris attained his professional engineering license and board certification as an environmental engineer. After serving as the utilities manager for a municipality and years with international engineering firms, he started Sherrick Solutions, Inc. in 2015. His company focuses on sustainable solutions, including creative, innovative designs for infrastructure projects. Recent projects include an LED lighting retrofit at the City of Sarasota Commission Chambers, electric vehicle charging stations at SRQ in the town of Longboat Key, and composite material decking at the 10th Street Boat Ramp in Centennial Park. Please welcome Chris.
Thank you, Misty. Again, being a part of this panel is really cool. These are people I look up to and got to work with for a long time, and it's just really cool to be a part of this. Kevin talked a little bit about how much energy it takes to make water, and it takes a lot of water to make energy. There's a nexus there between the water and energy, and it's interesting too that we've got power, water. I'm going to talk about electricity and water, so we've kind of got the everything covered here. We can't necessarily make a decision or make a choice as to how we get our power. We can encourage FPL to do what they're doing. They're phenomenal. If you haven't visited the solar facility out east, it's phenomenal. Got to take a tour of that with our Natural Resources Committee. It was just amazing to get out there and see that for myself. We had solar car races out there with the kids and everything else. It was just an incredible event out there. We can't make the choice of where we get our power from. We can't make the choice from where we get our water from. But Matt White, when he invited me to speak today, he wanted me to talk a little bit about some of the personal choices we could make, and I'll even maybe challenge you to look at some of the professional or commercial choices you might be able to make at your businesses as well. between 1/3 and half of the water that we use at our home, between 1/3 and 1/2 of the energy we use at our home is used to heat our water. Again, that nexus between the amount of energy it takes to make water and water to make energy. But using solar to power a small solar-powered water supply, I mean, that's what we need to do and look at that option at our homes. That's the first thing. But the other thing that I've really been involved in the last, I don't know, 6 years, I guess, is electric vehicles. We can choose to buy an electric car. That choice is out there now. 6 years ago, I had the choice of buying 3 different brands, and now we have over 25 different manufacturers making electric vehicles. 80% of us are driving less than 40 miles a day. 80% of us are driving less than 40 miles a day. And I would be willing to bet that most of our commercial vehicles are fit that mold as well. Even 6 years ago, there were vehicles that were designed specifically to be that particular vehicle where you've got the electricity first and then gas as a backup. In 2011, I went to Iceland to visit a friend. I spent $1,000 on gasoline. I got 11 miles per gallon in a SUV, and we drove around the ring road. And I just came back to the States, and I just couldn't do it anymore. Could not get back into my Jeep, SUV that a lot of people have. Couldn't do it anymore. And at that time, they had this car that was out there, this Chevy Volt. And I ordered one because they weren't selling it in Florida. They were only selling it in compliant states. And that's really where my story began, is some of you know how passionate I get about electric cars, and it's a choice that we make. In 2013, somewhere in there, I heard everybody telling me how great their Prius was. The Prius is a good car. Hybrids are good cars. They're good. To go from 30 miles per gallon to 35 miles per gallon, that's good. That's really good. But I was getting over 200 miles a gallon in this little Chevy Volt, and I'm scratching my head why GM's not marketing this car, why these opportunities aren't out there, why aren't they during the Super Bowl, one of the commercials. And so I wrote a book. I wrote a book in 2013 about this electric vehicle revolution, and my mom made me print them. I didn't want to because they're not sustainable printed copies, but I did leave cards, and my website's over there. You can download a PDF for free. Just trying to get the information out there about the costs, the total costs of driving electric. It might be a little bit more expensive up front to buy an electric car, no doubt about that, because of the battery technology that Buck was talking about. Solar and battery technology, the cost per watt, the cost per kilowatt hour is what we use for batteries, is on an exponential decline. I mean, the cost per unit amount of energy. And so the battery technology is just phenomenal, and we'll see some significant leaps and bounds here in the next couple of years. But that's a choice we have now. It was a choice I had 6 years ago. So whether you're an Audi person or you're a VW person even, there are choices out there now that we can make in order to maybe reduce our footprint and maybe make different decisions on how we're using our energy. You heard Buck talk about all the solar going online. The neat thing about electric cars is they actually get cleaner as you own them because the grid's getting cleaner. Every year, either there's better regulations, right, tightening things down on emissions, or we're putting more solar online, or both. So because of that, EVs actually get cleaner over their life of their ownership. We just hit 100,000 miles on our little Chevy Volt. My son drives it now. And we changed the oil for the second time the other day in our driveway. And 2 oil changes, I don't know, $45 each at Walmart. We got the oil and did it ourselves. And when you look at that total cost of ownership of the car, the gasoline you're going to have to spend on that car, Lord knows what gas prices are going to be in the next 5 years. I'd venture to guess they'll go up. And then that operating cost. I think if you look at all of that and that total cost of ownership, you'll see that it really makes sense to look at an electric car. I got this just a couple days ago in the mail. This is called Workhorse. It's a brand new startup company in Ohio that's building electric vehicle trucks, 80 miles on a charge, and then it has a gas backup. These are called plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, so they first go electric and then they've got gas as a backup to get you wherever you need to go. I really think that's the way the industry is going, is to inch us along. And again, this was just a couple days ago that this was announced, this workhorse truck. So the F-150 is the most profitable vehicle ever built. Ford makes about $13,000 on every one that they sell. I would consider or suggest you consider looking at alternatives that are out there now. And again, maybe for your fleet, there might be some people here from Manatee County. Consider getting one and trying it for your fleet. But I think that's all I have, but I just want to kind of outline these choices that we have that we can make not only in our personal lives, but maybe in our professional, commercial life as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And finally, we have Mark Simpson. For the past 8 years, Mark has been the Water Division Manager of the Utilities Department for Manatee County Government. He has a bachelor's degree in chemistry, he has two, chemistry and biology, from the University of South Florida, and has been with Manatee County since 1982. Mark has held various positions in the Utilities Department Quality Control Laboratory for the majority of his career, with a major focus on researching the prevention and removal of algae byproducts from potable source surface waters. He is the author or co-author of over 25 technical papers, research reports, and presentations to professional conferences covering subjects including water quality, treatment, and laboratory techniques. Mark is a member of the American Water Works Association and the North American Lakes Management Society. He is a longtime member of the AWWA Taste and Odor Committee of Standard Methods. His wife, Joanne, and he are the proud parents of 4 enchanting and brilliant daughters from the age of 19 to 30 and 1 grandson, age 3. Please welcome Mark.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak here today. I'm going to jump right in and say that as the Water Division Manager for Manatee County Utilities, I can say the short answer to the question posed in the title of this topic, will we have enough to drink? The answer is yes, we will. And I'm confident in stating this because I know the process we employ to ensure that we will be successful in meeting our goal of always safe, always on, and always affordable. As Kevin has shared a few minutes ago, we currently have a significant water supply that is projected to meet our demands for at least the next 20 years and have identified options both locally and regionally for future supplies. So I'd like to take a few minutes and review the process that we use to make sure that I'm confident we'll meet our demands and now and into the future. A key part of our process is the water demand projections, which are based on demands from population, contractual agreements, and our comprehensive plan policies. Our population projections are developed annually by our planning section of our Building and Development Services Department in county government, and they use the same methodology when they're doing their traffic analysis zones so that all of our departments use the same population numbers. They look at this data and then they also compare that to the annual projections that are put out by the University of Florida Bureau of Economic, Business, and Research, the annual projections, and make adjustments if they're needed. So we take the numbers that we get, we apply appropriate factors for our per capita use, which is the amount of water, average amount of water that every person uses every day, and what we are required to provide our consecutive systems, our wholesale contract numbers, and also the significant uses, and those would be users that use over 25,000 gallons of water per day. The resultant calculated total daily average flows are then compared against our available average and peak supply capacity of our existing facilities, and then use that to determine when new supply will be needed. And then we share this information annually with our partners in the Peace River, Minnesota Regional Water Supply Authority to ensure our needs and our plans are considered on a regional basis. In addition, every 5 years, we produce a water supply facility work plan that covers the next 10-year period. It includes supply, treatment, and delivery facilities. It also includes a capital improvement project for the next 5 years. And every year, the CIP is updated and adopted by the Board County Commission. We also have on a 5-year schedule master plans that look out for the next 20 years for our water distribution system, our wastewater collection system, our water reclamation facilities, and our reclaimed water delivery systems. So similar steps have been taken over the life of the utility system, beginning with the decision to build the lake and the dam, and the water treatment facility, through different stages of capacity expansion at the water treatment facility, and development of a centralized sewer system, and 3 regional water reclamation facilities that put Manatee County ahead of many of our neighbors in the area. But these plans for utility systems, they didn't occur in a vacuum. They were included in and part of many visioning and planning efforts across the county. To name a few, in 1968, there was a concept plan out there. In 1973, there was an OPUG plan. 1990 was a comprehensive plan that's still in effect. It has potable water supply sub-elements, future land use maps, potable water and sanitary sewer service area defined, and our concurrency database that is maintained. And while it's clear that all of the items and timings incorporated in those planning efforts have not come to fruition, for example, the 1968 concept plan shows a future I-75 bridge, which was built, also shows a bridge at Ellington Gillette crossing the river, and also shows a bridge from Sneed Island to Northwest Bradenton. So those haven't occurred. But it does show that there has been a commitment to the planning and looking to the future in Manatee County. And along with that, our population projections have obviously varied over the years as the economy has ebbed and flowed. The most notable differences occurring in '04 and '05 when we were in the boom, and then just following that. However, water supply in Manatee County has not been a problem throughout all these changes. And a couple of statistics for consideration would be that if you look from 1950 to 2010, and you consider 10-year increments, the annual population increase in Manatee County was between 2,800 people in the 60s and up as much as 6,300 people in the 1980s. The annual increase between 2010 and 2014 was 5,400 people. And since 1970, the average increase is about 5,600 per year. So even though there's been ebb and flow throughout that period, there's a pretty consistent number to look at. Another way to look at that is from 2005 to 2015, the average number of dwelling units constructed per year was just under 2,000. And so as water supply facilities and utilities infrastructure have relatively long life, the plans need to accommodate long-term projections, as well as looking at the variable growth that is driven by the economy. And because this infrastructure is relatively costly, timing becomes important, because stranded assets, or those assets that are built but there's no demand to support those are the most expensive that you have. And so our process allows us to plan for the future while making needed adjustments on an annual basis, ensuring timing is appropriate and funding is available for those future infrastructure investments. So though right now we have ample supply, eventually we will need to increase and develop new sources. And the good news, as Kevin relayed, was that there are developable supply options locally and in our region. He shared some information on challenges on some of these, with the common thread that any future supply will likely have an increased cost. However, technology improvements and investigations into alternative methodologies have a promise of realizing lower costs. Technology to recapture and use energy in high-pressure membrane applications, desalting, is improving daily. And brackish water, RO, is something that's used a lot around the state, and it's essentially a drought-proof source. That water is always going to be there. We can also look at raw water, aquifer recharge, and/or storage and recovery. And it has the potential to capture large quantities of water for the benefit of the aquifer, to hold back intrusion, and to bolster supply, groundwater credits and/or straight recovery from those. And that can happen at lower cost than fully treated ASR. And currently, there are several test projects underway in the region, one at the Peace River facility, where if these are successful, prove successful, it could dramatically affect the cost of water supply in the region. So, in conclusion, our water supply in Manatee County can have a future that can be as good as it has been in the past 50-plus years. Our task is to continue in the footsteps of those that came before and utilize the planning tools we have and the technology advances to be developed to make the best decisions on options and timing for future supplies to continue to provide the best value to our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. And now we are at the point of our program where we take questions from the audience. So if you are a member of Tiger Bay and you have a question, please approach the microphone. Let us know if it's for one of the panel members or all of the panel members. And Mr. Lombardo, you're up first.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Lombardo. I'm sort of a retired civil engineer, and so I felt compelled to get up here and ask my first question ever since I've been a Tiger Bay member. So this is my first question. Mark, by the way, I've known Mark probably all of his years at the Manatee County, and he is an outstanding professional and just a great person. We've been fortunate to have him at Manatee County all these years. Two quick questions, Mark. The water supply, I think somebody said 52 million gallons a day. We have a surface water body, but I know that surface water body is supplemented by groundwater wells, which helps us to deal with drought issues, I believe. Can you tell us how much of the 52, if it's possible, actually comes from the ground as opposed to the surface component? And then the second quick question is, I've lived in Northwest Bradenton for a long time now, since 1974, fortunately. What is holding back the extension of reclaimed water into a lot of areas, including mine, where it would be great, I think, to have reclaimed water. I have a well for irrigation, and when I first bought in 1986, the well was about 150 foot deep, and I've actually had twice now to replace the wells to deepen them. So there's definitely an issue there.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Bob. I'll tackle the first question. The water treatment plant is, as Kevin said, it's currently permitted to produce 52 million gallons of water a day, daily average. 34.9 of that can come from Lake Manatee, and the rest of it can come from the groundwater side. There are higher numbers for peak days and peak months that can be into that. The plant is actually capable of producing 84 million gallons per water a day, so it's just a matter of having additional supply. We can treat more. Your question regarding reclaimed water is that I don't know of any plans to bring reclaimed water system to your neighborhood. What you have to consider is that as a enterprise fund, the utility is only funded by the fees that we charge. So the fees that we recover from providing the services that we make. The cost for reclaimed water, the cost that we can get back from providing reclaimed water, is not enough to pay for the infrastructure, to install the infrastructure in a developed neighborhood, not for the life of the pipes that are put in the ground. So if the pipes last 80 years, we can't recover enough revenue to pay the cost of installing those pipes in the ground over 80 years. That's what it is right now. So, and as a public entity that has an enterprise fund that has bondholders, we have bond covenants, and we can't make that investment unless we can show that return on investment. So that's basically where it is. Whereas if you go into a a new development, a new neighborhood, something that's being developed, it's much less costly to install that line in a new development without having to tear everything up and go back in. So that's what it comes down to. Thanks.
Thank you. And who has our next question? Marla. The engineers have all the questions. I think the people back at my office would be jealous. They're not here.
Hi, Marla Huff, and I'm a Tiger Bay board member. My question is for Chris Sherrick. You talked to us about the electric vehicles. Could you tell us, in general terms, how long you can expect the life of a battery to be, both in time and miles, and then what's the replacement cost of a battery?
Really good question. I get this a lot. So they're so new that we don't know. I mean, the short answer is we've had our Volt for 6 years. We are seeing no battery degradation whatsoever. We're still getting the same amount of charge on the battery that we got when we first bought the car. It has an 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty that we just hit, and that's on the charging system and the batteries and the motors and everything else. So now some of the other cars, Tesla has an unlimited mileage warranty. Unlimited mileage warranty. Yeah, I did say that right. We don't know because the batteries have only been here for 6 to 8 years, depending on what kind of car. But they're being called pharmaceutical grade batteries because they're so clean and so well made. There's a gigafactory being built right now. Tesla's building in Sparks, Nevada, ironically. Maybe purposely, I don't know. But that battery plant it's larger than all the battery plants in the rest of the world combined. And it will not only provide the batteries for Teslas, but also to sell it to some of the other manufacturers.
Pat Benson, Tiger Bay. Before you sit, Chris, what's the cost of a battery? I think that was, yeah.
Yeah. So the other part of that is, Marla actually asked that too, is that
Yes.
in 2011, I asked the same question. I said, what's this $35,000 car? What does the battery cost if I have to replace it? And back then, they told me $3,500.
Okay.
Now, that's about $2,200 for the newer Volts. So again, that whole idea of the battery, the cost per kilowatt hour, it's coming down dramatically, and the batteries are getting lighter, and they're getting more powerful, and they're being improved. So when you buy a car now, and maybe in 8 years you've got to replace the battery, if you do in 8 years, you're not going to put back the original battery that was in there. It's going to be a better technology. It's going to be lighter, faster, cheaper. So again, we don't know yet because they just haven't been out long enough.
Great. That was the end of hers. But my question is, my daughter is a General Motors Institute engineering graduate, and she keeps telling me, along with other people, that the cost that you put into a battery-operated car, you'll never see the differential of the cost of a regular car versus theirs. How many years for catch-up? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. You're asking a return on investment
Yes.
type of a question, which I don't know that any car has a return on investment that
Right.
you have to do because it's a depreciation
Yeah.
thing, right? But I think to answer, to kind of discuss your question is, how much more expensive is it to buy an electric vehicle?
Right.
I think that's really your question, is there's an incremental cost there. That little bit of additional cost.
Is how many years? Yeah.
It is.
Catch
And
up.
it depends on how far you drive, not necessarily how long you own the car. That's
Right.
really key too.
Yes.
It's about miles.
Yeah.
So I did some total cost of ownership calculations in my book, and it looked like, again, based on gas prices, based on electricity prices. I mean, there are a lot of factors that come into play when you look at all of that. But taking the maintenance out, it was looking around 5 years to
Okay.
where those lines cross. And I actually have some graphs in my book. So.
So,
I can answer this question.
Oh, okay.
so that means I can argue with my daughter and buy one?
If you take 2013 Class S Mercedes, you take the Tesla Model S, and 2013 right now you can find any Model S about $15,000 around this price, but the Model S Class S and Mercedes will be around 25, 30. So the depreciation is higher for the combustion engine than for electricity.
Thank you for that. All right, and who has the next question? While we're waiting for someone to come up to the microphone, I just want to say thank you so much for recognizing Pat Glass and Commissioner Ed Chance, because there really was some great planning that was done back in the day, and that's why we have such a healthy water supply here today, and we should all be very proud of that. Rosalie.
Hi, I'm Rosalie Schaefer, and I'm a member. I have a question for Mr. Martinez. Coal. There's a lot of talk of bringing back coal jobs and bringing back coal mining. What are the actual odds of bringing back coal jobs these days?
In Florida, none.
I mean, in the country.
We actually, yeah, in Florida, we actually bought, we had a joint venture where we were actually getting some of the coal from some of the plants in Florida, and we actually bought the plants itself to shut them down. So the economics were to shut them down. I think in areas like West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, there's still a lot of desire to use coal, clean coal as they call it. So, sorry. So I think there will still be a desire, and that's mostly for employment, I think. Keep in mind that in a lot of these states, you don't have the opportunities for some of the renewable energies that we have here in Florida or California or Texas or Arizona. So some of the areas in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio, they don't have the ability to capture the sunlight that we have here in Florida. They don't have the wind technology, so they have to make a decision. Is it going to be gas, coal, or nuclear? I don't see nuclear being built for many years. Maybe there's one, and that's going to be in Georgia. Not because nuclear is not a great technology, but it's not an economic decision today. It's too expensive. If you ask a CEO whether they would be willing to spend $20 billion on a new nuclear plant without any certainty that it would ever get built, because under every administration, they can change their mind. It costs $150 million just to apply for a license for nuclear. You spend billions of dollars before you have any certainty. So I think the nuclear equation might be out of the way. So these states have to make a decision. What is the greatest certainty of getting something built? My bet would always be natural gas. It's very clean, it's very cheap, and you can actually get it built in about 1.5 years. Coal, even though there's plenty of coal available, and you can make it clean by not what goes into the stack, but what comes out of the stack. There's enough technologies that you can put in the stack where it can come out clean. But it's an expensive proposition on the capital costs. And if the administration has changed and you have an anti-coal administration, then you have a sunk cost for 30 years. So, but I think there's a huge desire to put people to work in West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, where you're still going to see some coal plants being built.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ben, board member.
Good afternoon. My question is for Mr. Simpson. It's comforting to hear that we have such good quantity of supply in Manatee County, but given the current world climate we live in, where there are unfortunately people who wish us or other people harm, who don't exactly administer that in the most fair of ways, what is Manatee County doing to make sure that that water supply is protected from someone who might want to come in and harm it? How is it being protected along the plants? How is the water being tested on a regular basis to make sure that it is clean and that everything going out to the citizens is clean and cared for and protected?
Yeah, so I'm tempted to say I can't tell you that because it's a safety-sensitive issue. But what I can say is that Manatee County, again, some of the planning and visionary folks that were around, many years ago, went to a lot of lengths, and we have a large portion of our watershed for Lake Manatee is in public ownership, so we have control over what happens in the watershed. Duet Park was purchased by the county. There's some significant portions that were purchased by the Water Management District as well, such that now about 40% of that watershed is in public ownership. So that gives us a level of control of those areas. As far as the lake itself, the reservoir itself, we're protected by two things. One is, it's a large volume. It's for anybody to intentionally put something into that to make the water harmful or so that we couldn't treat it, it would have to be a huge amount because of the dilution, I guess, that you would get in that lake. So that's one. The other thing is that there are security efforts at the plant, around the intakes, around the area, security cameras and stuff going on that keeps that. As far as testing it during the process, we have online analyzers, we have grab samples that are done on hourly, different frequencies throughout the day, throughout the process. And out in our distribution system, you know, our certified laboratory is measuring over 45,000 analyses a year, checking the water quality. We're out there and we're taking water quality samples, not just at our storage facilities, not just leaving our plant, but at people's taps at people's homes, taps in restaurants, taps in public places. So we're monitoring out throughout the system every day we're out there. Thanks.
My name is Betty Thomas Anderson, and I am a member. My husband has to come up with me because my balance is terrible. And about a year ago, I actually fell at the feet of the chief of police in Palmetto. And afterwards, people would tell me how much they enjoyed that. So I think they thought that was the entertainment of the day, but it really wasn't. I grew up on a small farm in the Talavast area. Some of you will know where that is. And we had an artesian well, very deep, wonderful, wonderful, cold, clear water. And we thought it tasted fine. And when I would ask a potential boyfriend home for lunch on Sunday, as we used to do, I lost him. He never came back again because we had iced tea and he had no idea what that taste was, you know. So my question is, are there still artesian wells and have they been treated anyway?
To take that one on.
So there are still artesian wells in some locations in this area in Manatee County. Not very many. Most of them have been capped. The ones that we knew about have been capped because you don't want that water flowing. You want to keep that water in the aquifer. But there are still some that we project that there are still some out there that we don't know where they are, that they're flowing underneath lakes and some small ponds and stuff like that. But for most of the ones, like I said, the ones that are known have been capped in order to keep that water in the aquifer, to keep it from flowing out. Because the groundwater in the area has been pumped. As Kevin mentioned, the overpumping that has occurred in our area for quite a while. Heavily reliant on groundwater for agriculture and for other issues across the county. So that resource has been protected and most of those wells have been capped.
Mm-hmm. Well, somewhere along the years, I became a city girl, and it took me a long time to get used to Bradenton water. I thought it tasted terrible, but I've been in the city for a while, so I'm sort of used to it. But I've not been back to my dad. He's deceased, and my mother finally sold it, and I haven't been back there to test it, but maybe I will now.
Yeah, the individual's taste for water is very different across, because a lot of it comes from what they're used to, what they grew up with. There's a lot of people that grew up in the city that wouldn't be able to drink the artesian water that you grew up with, just like you don't like the water that's in the city or county or municipal supplies. So it's very individual as to what your palate likes and what you claim to like. One of the interesting comments that we get, because we have a lot of people from all different parts of the country that come to Florida and live here, one of the interesting calls that we get is on a fairly routine basis is that they call us and they say that they don't have any cold water in their tap anymore. And of course, we tell them we don't have a refrigerator. We just supply the water's good, it's clean as dry, but the temperature, it comes from a lake. We're in the subtropical climate, so.
Well, my dad used the well, of course, to water the farm. and that was a wonderful thing, but thank you.
And I have one last question, and if no one else does, and that is about our infrastructure. And I asked Mark to stay up here because I know that Manatee County is now struggling with replacing infrastructure that has gotten old. And I heard someone say our dam is now 50 years old. So could you talk about how that is maintained and if there are any improvements that are needed? Is it still structurally sound, and for how long?
Yeah. So yes, the dam is 50 years old. We have a annual monitoring inspection that's done on the dam with a certified engineer. And we have also have, weekly and daily analyses that we do to check different things around the dam. Routine maintenance on the dam done every year. As far as 3 years ago, we installed a new cutoff wall in the dam, across the dam. At that 50-year time frame, we had found some issues. We still have another project to complete that process of bringing that infrastructure up to make it last. So it's a continual battle that we always face, and we go through it. Just like all the rest of our infrastructure, it's continual renewal and replacement.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Well, I want to again thank our panel for being here. You all did a fantastic job. As we have done lately, we have an award to the person who has asked the most engaging and best question of today's luncheon. And one of our board members, Mr. Chris Willey, is going to announce who the winner is. Mr. Bob Lombardo. All right. We have a tiger button for you. Our next luncheon is going to be on the topic of fake news. We hope that you all will be here. Kevin McNulty is one of our speakers, and as the program comes together, you will receive an emailed notification of that. We hope to see you then. Again, thank you to our panel. Thank you to METV. Good afternoon.
Thank you.